All right, how to prepare for a conversation and never run out of things to say, whether it's in networking, sales, or a social setting. Have you ever entered a conversation and immediately felt very uncomfortable? Probably like uncertain on what to say, maybe felt awkward, or even anxious. So I'm going to share a very easy strategy, a couple of tips on how we can improve our communication by preparing. That way we can appear more confident, leave a more positive impression, and make sure that we avoid awkward silences for good. You may already know this, but the reason why you're struggling to have a better conversation is simply because you're not really being prepared. I mean, not being prepared is just simply not having the skills or the right techniques that you can implement in having better conversations. And when you are prepared, when you have the right skills and the right traits, you will have the ability to talk to anybody at any moment and any situation. Right? The easy answer is most likely people will probably think about is just sticking with social media, right? We'll just send DMs, engage with them and through the comments, maybe the likes, and etc. But that's just the short term answer, right? In the long term, it's not really going to solve the issue, right? You're most likely still going to be very lonely just because you're not building the experience that is needed to confront other people. And even if it's in virtual, let's say, for example, through a Zoom, you're going to be struggling because you're not going to be able to pick up on certain cues that you can use during the conversation on, for example, like their body behavior or their tonality that you can easily be using if you just had the right guidance. So, what if I took all my experience from business negotiation, from trying to negotiate an offer, the price, and apply it to a more day to day conversations? And it's pretty straightforward if you just break it down to three phases, right? The first thing we have to ask ourselves, why do we struggle? Right? This is like the foundation, right? What's holding you back mentally? If it's something that you're feeling doubt because you don't have the right skills or the right experience. The second thing, confronting your hesitation. So we figure out what's going on first and provide the necessary tools and resources right here. So that way you can prevent it from happening again. Now, we figure out why, we can provide the tools and resources, but now we have to execute. And this comes through practice and having real conversations, right? I can give you all the tools, all the resources, all the information from videos, books, all the things you want. But if you can't implement it, then you're just going to be wasting your time. And I'm being very straightforward because this implies with anything. Consuming a certain amount of knowledge is good, but it's not going to take you to the next level if you can't even implement it. The good thing is that we only need five things to change, and my team can cover two of them right away. And I'll explain a little bit why, right? The five steps. The first three that you can do immediately is first just having curiosity during the conversation. When we enter the conversation with curiosity, we allow ourselves to let our prospect talk more. Because what tends to happen is that a lot of times when people are talking, we like to cut them off if we are very aware of the topic they're talking about. For example, if let's say that they're talking about a football game that happened last week and you cut them off, oh no, yeah, I already watched that. You don't have to talk about it anymore. You're basically just saying is like shut up and move on to a different topic. So you immediately put this barrier between you guys, and most likely you're just basically asking him to walk away. So one of the things that is going to be connected with just having that curiosity is being able to listen. We all believe that we are listening, but in reality, we don't really pay attention. Listening is something that's very active, right? You actually have to be paying attention of the words that come out of their mouth. Listening gives you the ability to use their words for the following up of the conversation, which leads me to the next point is calibrated questions. Like honestly, if you had to choose one of the steps as one of the more important ones, honestly, I feel like it's calibrated questions. And just because a lot of people don't ask good questions. Using the same example of the football game, if I just said, "Did you watch the football game yesterday?" Yeah, I did. Right? The conversation ends there. How many people showed up to your party? Like 10. Conversation ends again there. There's no flow in the conversation. But if you use calibrate questions, or another word is open ended questions, right, is using how and what questions, is going to give them more room to answer the question. For example, what did you think about the game yesterday? Right? It gives them the room to answer the question and elaborate on it. So it's very difficult for someone to give you a one-worded answer, right? What did you think about the game yesterday? I thought it was pretty great. Me and my family were just sitting in the living room, just having a good time. And again, you could probably ask another follow-up question to that. How often do you and your family get together? Right? And again, you give them room to elaborate on the answer. And the good thing is that I do have a list of calibrated questions that you can implement right away. I will encourage not to memorize them, but just choose one or two questions and just implement it to your next conversation. Now, the two things that it's a little bit more difficult just because you have to practice with someone else, because it's kind of hard to be aware of your own tonality and something that takes more time, which is controlling and accepting your emotions. And we're talking about tonality, is we have two different tones. We have our day-to-day tone, which is like what I'm using right now. It's just my everyday voice. And the second one is your curiosity tone. It's like, what made you decide on making that decision? It's completely different energy, how I say that, than my everyday voice. And those two things is something you can practice every day. And it's better if we have someone else giving you the feedback that you need. And lastly, it's control and acceptance of emotions. The last thing you want to enter a conversation is to having your emotions all over the place, right? If you're feeling angry, if you're feeling fear, you're most likely going to make a mistake that you're going to regret later on. So I would rather you guys step away from the conversation, cool down, and then come back when you're ready to have a normal conversation. And I know there's going to be moments where you cannot do that. It's a very important conversation, maybe in negotiation. And the only thing you can do is accept it and make a statement out of it. And I love using this as an opening line, even. For example, if you're in a cafe and you have to talk to someone across the room, I'd rather you guys get up, walk across the room, and just simply say, it took me a lot of courage to come to talk to you today because I am feeling very nervous and I'm just trying to figure out why. Now, a lot of people don't really like using that opening line because they feel like their status comes completely down. But in reality, you have to think about a lot of people won't even come up to you and be honest and straightforward. So depending on the person, most of the time they're gonna give you the respect. And not only that, you're also gonna be more memorable. Most common opening lines is just good morning, good afternoon, how are you doing? Same old, and it's just boring. So just you accepting your emotions and using that as your opening line is going to be so much better. And even during the middle of a conversation, you can use it. Like this conversation is kind of heating up. I'm feeling a little angry right now, and I just want you to know that. So you stating that is going to have your prospect think about continuing the conversation or maybe letting you take a step back and helping you control your emotions. Either ways, it's going to be a win-win. And the immediate benefit you're going to see if you implement those 5 things in your conversations is that your conversations are going to start flowing more naturally, right? You don't have to overthink about it, and you're going to be without that weird awkwardness. And that is why we have to take action immediately. Because just imagine how it will feel to have that full confidence and having that full control in any situation, if it's in a cafe, is that at the gym, or maybe it's going to be in your next business meeting.